Uh, so given that it is so close to the new year, Jen and I wanted to come on and talk to you about how to make better New Year's resolutions that pertain to wellness, fitness, health, um, and basically give you some ideas of how to make these goals without just getting stuck in another diet trap. Because I think most of us have probably set out with good intentions and like this energy to pursue weight centered goals, of, I'm going to change my diet, or I'm doing this cleanse, or I'm starting this workout routine, with all the, regardless of what those routines are, whether nutrition or workout or whatever, have this outcome goal of weight loss, that might happen. But then of course, by the next year, you're, right back where you started and you're doing the same thing again, right? So that is, a variation of the diet cycle. And so how can we make fitness, wellness, health goals for this new year for those of us trying, looking to pursue that without getting stuck in that vicious cycle that ends up making us feel like pretty crappy about ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you somebody that's made those goals before? I feel like every Monday I was making that goal. So
yeah, I can't remember if there's ever been like a New Year's time. I actually kind of feel like there's like two kinds of people. There's people that are like, oh, I'll make my New Year's resolution. And there's other people that are like, oh, New Year's resolutions are BS, so I'm not going to do anything. And once again, yes, what we're going to talk about is like, there doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You do nothing for the new year, or you go all in and do some kind of crazy diet. But like, if you want to make changes in your life, how can you go about that in a productive, healthy way?
Yeah. And some people might be feeling this sort of energized momentum going into January, and harnessing that to make changes could be very positive for them. Other people might not feel that way. They might be coming out of these holidays like feeling run over by a bus. They've had family in town. They're exhausted. Like they're going into January, like, I just like cannot take on another thing. Like they need a break. So it really just depends on what, really being honest with yourself about how you're feeling. I think for Jen and I, because we are child free, we don't maybe have as much expenditure of energy over the holidays. So it's maybe a little easier for us to kind of get into our own heads and hearts.
If anything, we have too much time.
Yeah, seriously. I'm like, when is this going to be done? Let's go. So I think it's important to just recognize that how the diet industry has really co-opted this idea of New Year's resolutions, which I think back in the day were really more about, they were probably more based around like religious stuff, like around like being a better person and everything. And the diet industry really saw an opportunity there to just a marketing opportunity to really hone people's focus in on this idea that being a better person has to do with the way that you look, how much you weigh, whether you have six-pack abs or not. And it was such an easy, they're clever people working in those for those companies. And so it's not your imagination if you're seeing like way more ads for cleanses and detoxes and, new year, new you. And of course, the new you is always you weighing less. It's all
the thing I've seen is like Peloton commercials, like a lot of Peloton commercials. Yeah.
Yeah. And the promise, of course, there's a lot of emotion in this stuff. And I know everyone thinks that they're above it. Everybody, not me. I know the tricks of those marketers. I feel that way too, but it does work. And the more of these ads that you see, the more you start thinking, like if I get a Peloton and do, my life it's going to be great. We have this we start to feel that, by reaching the goal that is, again, normally centered around looking a certain way, that's going to like really change our life for the better, you know? And that's nothing against Peloton. Peloton's great. There, it's all the intention, motivation behind these actions that we're taking.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and also like just to go off on a tangent, some of
Yeah.
the language around the exercise stuff too is just can like, like I don't know, it's like this intensity, like you got to stick with it and you got to rise and grind, and like it's like there's a hardness to it, and like
Yes.
and it sets you up to feel like a failure when you don't feel like rising and
Because you
grinding and
can't
doing it.
you just cannot maintain that. There are very few people that are able to like bring 100% to every workout. And like, nor should you be, because if you are bringing 100% to every workout, then you're probably not listening to your body because, or you're like the luckiest person ever who always sleeps great, who has no stress, who, whatever. It's just really unrealistic, but that's part of the fantasy that is being sold. I mean, like these marketers aren't telling you the truth. They're not required to do that. So they're not telling you like, oh, like after buying the Peloton, how much, do people really use it? I mean, we all have, the joke of like the treadmill being in your somebody's room and it's just like covered in clothes. And that's
They
not to be
actually are using
but
that in their marketing, but that's a whole other thing.
oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Yes.
Very clever. Very clever. People getting paid a lot of money. And again, it's
Yes.
not like I'm saying you might be like, well, I have a Peloton and I love it. And that's not my point at all. It's just, again, the intention that we're bringing to these things that really matters. So let's get into this a little bit. And we'll talk about some better ways to set health and wellness goals for 2023. So I can do this first one, Jen, and then you can get into the rest of movement nutrition stuff, and I'll probably pop in as I do. But I think it's important to just put out the kind of like non-sexy stuff first, just get it out of the way. And this is more just about like addressing the basics of our wellness, our well-being as humans. And by that, I mean, like if you haven't been to the doctor in years, like a really great goal would be to go to a doctor, find a primary care doctor, get in for a checkup, right? Like when's the last time you had blood work done? Has it been more than 5 years? Like that kind of thing. Going to the dentist if it's been a really long time, and that's something that is like stress, or when you think about your teeth, you're like, oh, I can't even, that's something, right? If you're getting that aversion feeling, where we're like, oh, I don't even want to think about that. That's probably the thing that we need to take action around. For my ladies with vaginas, we need to go to the gyno. Okay, get that pap smear.
Yeah, and we can go with any of those other like exams that start to, and like I'm of an age where it's starting to be like, get your mammogram, get your colonoscopy, like all those scans and stuff.
Yeah. Smoking, substance abuse, excessive alcohol use, only the answer to those things, right? Like if you're like, yeah, I smoke weed sometimes, not a big deal. Okay, fine. Like no big deal, right? Only like when these things are making you uneasy. And if they are, then and again, that aversion test is a really good one. If you start thinking about it and you get riled up or you feel like I can't deal with it, that might be the thing. And another one that Jen and I have seen a lot in our training is just women not sleeping or just really not getting good quality sleep, or straight up having insomnia or a sleep disorder that's not addressed. And also injuries. So if you're dealing with like pain in your body that you have not sought to address, that might be
what a
one.
Great New Year's resolution. Hey, my shoulder's been bothering me for 8 months. I'm going to finally get it checked out. I think that's an awesome resolution.
It's a really good one. And again, these ones we don't like to hear as much because they don't promise like that fantasy version of ourselves that the commercials, with like the women on the beach and they're like, like whatever. it's just not sexy. And that's why I kind of put it in the front, because I'm like, yeah, but these are like the fundamental building blocks of our health, right? You might even, I didn't put it on there, but it might even be like toxic relationships or setting boundaries, right? Those are all really important for our health as well, our mental health, which directly affects our physical health too.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, Jen, get in it.
And, like when we talk about intuitive eating, that can be kind of cross over to so many aspects of your life. And basically, it's checking in with yourself and asking yourself what you need, not what you should do. So instead of being like, I should lose weight, I should do these workouts, like really checking in and asking yourself what you need. And in terms of rest, I'd say the majority of people I know could use probably a little more rest. And that doesn't always mean physical rest. We just spent 2 long lives talking about a bunch of different ways to rest, but just ways to kind of rest and restore yourself. And seeing what that might mean. It could be journaling, it could mean therapy, it could mean arts and crafts, reading, walking, fresh air. And I think in particular in the winter, it could be hard to get outside and get those walks in and get that fresh air, but it can be really so restorative and energizing to do that once you get all your clothes on and you get out there. And that's a big one, I will say personally for me, is to spend more time in nature, in the winter and outside in the winter, because I spend a ton of time outside in the summer. So that's definitely a goal for myself.
Yeah, it's such a great point. I mean, I can definitely say that in doing all of the fitness intakes and those first meetings with people who are looking to work out, most of the people that I talk to feel like one of the main reasons that they don't exercise is because they are just tired. Like they just feel like they just really do not have the energy to do it. So getting into movement, like what kind, there's so many different kinds of movement. So we have strength training, we've got more playful movement or creative movement like dance or playing a sport. Think about, do you want to move in public, in community with people, right? Like going to a class, or like Jen did salsa, dancing, like partner salsa. We have a client right now who does swing dancing, right? So that's in community, you would be moving your body. Not everybody wants to do that. Would it be more of a Zoom class, or something that you would do at home? So all of those questions are very important, because we tend to default to this idea of like, well, I just need to work out. I need to go to a gym. Even though those things might be really unappealing to you. And that being said, yeah, there have been many things in my life where I'm like, I hate this, I don't want to do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh, I actually am kind of enjoying this. Right. So it's not to say, if you have any hesitation, don't do it. Right. Yeah. Maybe getting over a fear and you find you really enjoy doing Zumba with people where you thought, oh my God, I'm going to be so embarrassed. But then everyone is so freaking nice. In my experience, everyone in Zumba is really, really nice. And I'm the person just being weird and not getting any of the moves.
You had to make it weird.
Yes.
But thinking of movement as not a way to burn calories or lose weight, but movement is something you do for yourself. And I think a huge part of movement is just to help with mental health. It's
Totally.
a big part of it. And
Yes.
then, avoiding injury, staying strong, creativity, if it's dancing, just so many different reasons for movement.
Yes. And when we take weight goals away from this goal of movement, it just, first of all, it adds to the longevity and sustainability of that habit, because there's no failure, right? There's no oh, I've been doing this dance class, it's so awesome. And you're weighing yourself, the scale isn't moving. And you're like, well, this is a waste of time. It's it's not a waste of time though, because you met your new friend, Betsy, and you're getting out of the house and right. And there's so many health benefits for movement we talked about before that have nothing to do with weight loss. there is incredibly robust research showing that regardless of weight loss, bringing in healthy habits is a huge indicator of improving health markers, regardless of if people lost weight or not. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Yeah. And then we always, for getting into nutrition, I can totally understand maybe over the holidays, you ate more sugar than you normally would. Like I have cookies in my house. I don't actually like enjoy cookies a ton, so I don't buy them that much. So like, yeah, I've been having cookies every day. And maybe you're having people over and cooking foods you're not used to, or going to family and eating foods that you're not used to. Either way, you want to kind of like eat foods that are more like normal with your diet, that you know you feel good when you eat them. And we like to think about that as adding things in versus taking things out. So, you know, maybe over this next past week, you haven't eaten a lot of vegetables or fiber. Like, okay, let's add some veggies in. What kind of veggies do I like? And what am I feeling like I want? And how can I add that in? Rather than like, okay, sugar's gotta go and no more starches and like that like, we gotta get all this out. Instead, like, what can we bring in that we were missing?
Yeah, I like the way you describe that too, because I think that we need to get curious around like feelings of like disgust. Like if we're like, I just have to like, get this brownies, cake, and like there's just this, feeling like that around this idea that somehow you've been gross or like overindulgent or like this version of yourself over the holiday that is somehow like not good, and that once January comes, then you're going to start being good. And it is interesting because I've had just this last week, I mean, I made homemade candies, like similarly, just all this really, really rich food. And when I go to the grocery store, I do have a list, but then I also ask myself, like, what looks good? Like, what do you want? Like what, and I ended up getting like a thing of apples and some oranges. Oh God,
it's a good
they were
time of year for
amazing.
citrus. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it felt so good. And then I made this tea, like this homemade, like just cut up ginger with boiling water, a little honey, a little turmeric, and I've been drinking that. It's like, oh man, it feels good, right? So it's not about saying I've had so way too much of the sugar and now I am like pushing that out and I'm bringing this in. But I think if you just get quiet and curious, most likely most of us, and it's okay if this isn't you, but most of us probably, if you think about like, what would I really like? We probably might actually be just naturally craving some fresh foods, right? Maybe some more of like, gosh, I haven't had anything green in a while. Like, I think I'd like to have that tonight instead of, well, I should have something green because, we've been eating like crap and having this almost animosity or disgust towards this holiday eating, which really is a bummer because it's like really the holidays, are supposed to be about joy and community and special treats. It's fun to get treats, but
I mean, yeah, and like you said, like taking the time to bake or make a big meal that maybe during the norm other times of the year you just don't have that time to do that. So appreciating that you have the time.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point too. And I've seen this a lot in other intuitive eating people who are just intuitive eaters or coaches or whatever. And I've seen this with myself too, that like my plates look so it used to be, it's like either I'd have like a box of mac and cheese, which I still do occasionally. It'd be like I was being like bad, off the wagon, whatever, however you want to put it. And I'd be eating just like the full thing of pasta with all the butter and all the cheese and like that. And then when I'm good, it's like, okay, then I have all the veggies in the salad and I don't have anything, right? And now my plates, and maybe you feel this way too, Jen, is like there's just this variety on my plate. Like I got my chicken that I made and like all these veggies that I like. And then I also have my side of mac and cheese that I'm eating. And my plate takes on this really to me, what is more balanced, where it's not this either or, like I'm being good, so I'm having this, or like I'm being bad, I'm having a cheat meal or whatever, so I'm having this naughty food or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And that's, when you're making it, kind of ties into any new habit, is like not having this all or nothing attitude about it. And we
Yeah.
say this all the time, but so many of us struggle with this, like, good, bad. I'm doing it right. I'm doing it wrong. I'm failing. I'm succeeding.
Yeah.
I'm on the track, on the wagon, off track, off the wagon.
Yeah.
And like, if you can have any goal for this next year, it might be to let go of that.
It is definitely not serving, I don't think, anyone. I mean, it's funny. I look back to the four tendencies and I think about the upholders, the people that there are like this, they're the rarest kind of like personality trait combination that probably can do that, right? But it is incredible. So you might be thinking, well, I know someone or my husband or my wife or my friend, they just do, right? It's like, yeah, but that's not you.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with that, that's not you. Stop trying to be like them. They can do it. That's great for them. Like, more power to them. But if you are looking to be like, oh, why can Bob blah blah blah, then that's obviously not your personality, and you gotta just let it go. It's not you. You gotta find another way that's gonna work for you.
Yeah, and that comes to one of our points that we've made several times about making a new habit, is when you make that goal, like, what can you do on your worst day, not what's the ideal situation. And I used to do these fitness assessments at the gym, and people would come in, and at first they would dupe me. These people, they would trick me, and they would come in and they're like, I'm ready to come in. I want to work out 5 days a week. I want to change my diet. Beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, oh my God, this person is awesome. Like, they're going to be great. And 2 weeks later, they're not there because they couldn't live up to these incredibly high expectations of themselves.
And aren't those normally the people too that don't even, they like no show because, and I truly believe that it is the shame that they feel. They are like literally embarrassed because they put, right. They're like, here we go. And then like, those are the people where they just kind of don't show up. And then there's like a half-hearted text and then that's it. Like, I totally know.
Yeah. And then I've got the people that come in and they're like, hey, I don't really like exercising. Like, I know that this will be something that's good for me. I'm thinking maybe twice a week. And those are people I've trained for like 6 years.
Exactly.
And they've stuck with it.
Exactly. But you know what it reminds me of? This brings us back to like the vibe of these advertisements. Right? Where it's like the vibe of like that Peloton commercial is like that first person that we talked about, where it's just this gung ho, like balls to the wall kind of attitude that just cannot last, you guys. Like, it's not possible for humans to like maintain that level of energy. It just isn't, especially, I don't want to say especially for women, but I mean, we tend to have, especially mamas out there, like we just, and going through menopause and hormones and periods and all of the things, such a great example, Jen. So I think too, I just have to talk about it. We really encourage, regardless of the goal, to expect setbacks, and maybe even this would be bonus points to actually have a plan for what you're going to do when the setback happens, which it will. So we want to think about it like this. So if the goal is like here, like it's out there, whatever it might be, because maybe there is a hard stop goal, like you want to do like the Burlington City Marathon, right? Like, or whatever, like a portion of it, not the whole thing. That's crazy. But maybe like 3.5 miles or something like that. Right. So, but you want to think about it like this, whether you're up here or you're down here, you're still moving forward, right? Like, that's really important to understand, because people get so disappointed where they're like, I've been working out 5 days a week, which, like, by the way, who does that? I don't do that. But anyway, some people do. And then like then, oh my God, I only worked out 2 days. Like, oh my God, I really got right. And it's like that hemming and hawing and the shame, guilt, judgment that we pile on ourselves is not motivational. That's the thing. We think that it is, but it actually isn't. And so, so plan for those setbacks, right? Expect, at the very least, expect them, so that when they come, you're like, oh yeah, that we already knew this was going to happen. This isn't like a huge surprise. And I can tell you that when I was in the diet mentality, black and white thinking, all of that, every time I was, had that kind of fall off the wagon feeling, I was like surprised. I was surprised, I'm like, how could this happen? How could this happen? Anyway, it's funny now, but at the time it was very upsetting. But now I can look back and laugh.
Yes. And then along with that comes the idea of just letting the go of this. So we starting over. We start over on Monday. We start over at the beginning of the month.
There's no starting over.
We're just going.
We're just going. It's life, y'all. There is no like, I'm on the wagon, I'm off the wagon. There's no wagon. The wagon is in your head, right? Let the wagon go. Just move forward. Yeah. And I think just prioritizing joy, prioritizing your preferences, and knowing that they are valid, right? So getting into that, like, for example, with the movement, like, what kind of movement do you want to do? Do you want to just go on a walk by yourself? Right? That sounds lovely some days, right? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you want to have a trainer? Do you want to dance? You want to, start playing in some kind of dodgeball league or whatever? Think about it, right? Your preferences matter. And they are also one of the really important keys to sustaining your movement habit. Because if you don't like it at least a little bit, you are not going to sustain it, right? And that is another reason to hire a personal trainer, though. I have had clients, like Jen has said, that really dislike movement, but they love what the movement does for them when they're not working out. Right? They feel great, they're strong, they're just feeling better. So those are people where they are probably really going to benefit from having help, which there's nothing
a little
wrong
bit of
that.
Yes. Yeah. I think every single client I've ever had that has come in and said they don't like weightlifting or strength training has said, like, eventually, and it doesn't take that long, it's just a couple weeks, they start missing it when they don't get it in because it makes them feel so much better.
Yeah. And I don't have this in our notes, but I do think that just pointing out that you don't have to go at these goals alone. Like, ask for support, ask for help. If you've tried the same goal, right? Okay, this is the year I'm going to start working out, and it never works out. Figure out some way to get support, find a friend, grab a trainer, even if it's for just 3 or 4 sessions, right? You don't have to see a trainer for your whole life, try new things, and don't be afraid to do it in community and do it with support and help. Even if you have to pay for that help, I know it's not an option for everyone. But if it is an option for you, it's an incredible investment.
This is just a side thing. I had a former client that was looking to get back into working out in a gym setting, but they were nervous about like a big class or going to the YMCA or anything like that. And what Justine and I had done was gone to a personal training studio to work out. So if being around a lot of people, there's either Zoom sessions or something like that is a good option. And I
think that's a really good point. There are a lot of different gym environments. So if you've gone into a 24-hour fitness or YMCA, you might think that's what gyms are, but there actually are private, just personal training spaces where there's no one allowed to work out there that isn't with a trainer. So a lot of people don't know that. They're because you think, oh, gyms are just a membership thing. You go, you leave. That's not always the case. And so if you need recommendations of that within the Burlington area, you can definitely reach out to Jen and I, because we do know of a few studio spaces that are, can be a lot more comfortable for people.
Yeah. And then for funsies, we thought we'd talk about what we have going on for the new year. So Justine, I'm very curious, what's going on with you for the new year?
Well, Jen sprung this question on me, and I don't have anything written down, so I think for me, I have more intentions of how I want to just be, not so much what I want to do. So bless you. Yep, there we go. double sneezer.
There might be one more.
Should we wait?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay. So yeah, for me, it's more like subtle, but I think I'd like to continue with my like healing and self discovery in community. That's been something that I started in 2022. And I'd really like to continue that. It's not, it doesn't come naturally to me. So what I mean by that is like all through my 20s, I was always trying to do everything alone. Like I really felt that I needed to figure everything out by myself. And so when I started meditating, it was alone. Like I'd read all these books, listen to all these podcasts. I did everything by myself. Like I didn't want anyone to know, like that I was struggling or that I didn't really understand certain things or whatever. I'm like, no, I need to figure this out. And then I'm going to like come out as this like person that's like, like this enlightened kind of like, but no one can see the work that's going into that. Right. Yeah. I just did not feel comfortable with that because, vulnerability. Hello. Mm-hmm. So I already have in place a few tools. I bought a course through Sounds True, which is where Tara Brach, who wrote Radical Acceptance, and Jack Kornfield, who has many, many, many books out around mindfulness and meditation. I bought a course from them, and that gives me access to these group Zoom like meditation groups, and there's like at least 2 a day, and it's people all over the world, and you just log in just like this, and there's like tons of people on, and there's a person that guides it, and we have people share, and it was interesting because the first time I did it, I cried, and let me tell you, crying in front of basically the world, because you have
strangers
from every country, like not every country, but I mean, it would talk about vulnerable, because what I literally was trying to say was exactly what I just said to you, which was, like that I want to be in community, and it's uncomfortable for me, but it's so what I need. I just know it. So that's another example too of like, there's wisdom in our resistance. So it's, if you really don't want to do something, it's not about saying, okay, we just won't do it. Get curious, like why? Because for me, it was that like, I was scared of being embarrassed and like being vulnerable. So that's really my intention for 2023, is to continue to learn in community, heal in community, and not just envelop in on myself and isolate myself. So that's going to be, and that can take on many, many forms. Like I do my hip hop class, like it's not just meditation, right? It's a lot of different ways. And I'm going back to school in this year. And so that's like, talk about, learning in community and like doing all like role playing, which is one of the things I hate more than anything in life. I hate role playing, and there's going to be a lot of that. So a lot of challenges, but that's what I'm going to say.
Awesome. Yeah, I've enjoyed like watching you go through all of these like processes and experiences.
Oh, is that fun for you, Jen?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm gonna hang out and not take any chances and just watch you take all of them. No.
Stop it.
Yeah, I have, kind of a similar thing where I have an intention, and that is to be less judgmental. Yeah, and that includes like how I think about other people and just kind of like recognizing when those judgmental thoughts come up. And it also includes like how I talk about other people too, because sometimes I feel like you can get in that like kind of like gossipy, judgmental kind of thing. So I would like to decrease that. And then on a more like solid, I have this goal. I'd just like to spend more time in nature. And outside in general throughout the year, which has already started this week. I've gotten some walks in, some cross-country skiing, so that's been good. So I'd say those 2 things for now. And I do feel, we were talking about like whether or not you feel like an energy to make changes this time of year, and Justine was saying that she doesn't necessarily get that feeling, and maybe there's a different season where she does feel like that. But I do have that, and I want to get back to posting more on social media and stuff for my personal training business, and I feel like motivated to do that right now.
Yes, totally. And like riding that wave is really, really important. Yeah, totally. And it's interesting, like in like all the themes of my yoga classes for like the last 3 weeks have been all about this, like, because it is the solstice and like there's just the element of winter, and traditional Chinese medicine is water. And the whole like water is this, like, it's this adapting, like super strong, but also like yielding. It's just an amazing element that we are like mostly, made up of. And the energy of like creativity and the balance between basically like masculine and feminine, which is like the vision and the execution. So like this is a time like where we have these two like wings of the bird, right? We got like the vision, which is like feminine, and then the actual like action taking, which is masculine, and working to balance those. And then what comes from that is like skillful action, like skillful, like things happen and come are manifested out of that. So it's funny because I am talking a lot about that, but I don't, but for some reason I don't. Yeah, I guess I have my own sort of like assumptions around like New Year's resolutions. And as you know, I am like that annoying rebellious person where I'm just like, is everyone doing it? I don't want to do it.
Yes,
exactly. That's how I feel.
Yeah, and I don't tend to be like that. So I'm just like, this is, this way. And it is, I don't know, silly thought just on the water thing, but for that walk down by the water, and like there's all this ice like covering the trees and stuff. And at the same time, the lake is like blowing waves up against them. So you have that like frozen solid water versus that like very like moving water.
Oh, I love that, Jen.
So poetic.
Symbolism.
Yes.
Love it.
Symbols and shit.
Symbols and shit. Oh, that's gotta be a podcast or a book or something. Symbols and shit. Oh God. Okay. So good. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. And let us know if you watch this in the comments, to put what either a goal for the new year or an intention, right? Maybe not something with a hard edge or a hard stop, but something that you're just trying to bring more of into it. Maybe it's even, like Jen said, just non-judgment or something like that. Let us know. We're curious. Curious kitties. All right. We won't see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Nice.
Oh, I got confused because I was like, we're still recording, but we're off Facebook. All right.
Yes. Stop. Pause. Stop. Okay.